Hello everyone, this is Warhawk Beyond 2040 and welcome to another edition of the Jazz Albums Review Series. And today I am going to be taking a look at another 2024 release, this time a live album from perhaps the greatest piano player of all time and a gentleman who, in my opinion, needs no introduction whatsoever. I am talking about, of course, the one and only legendary pianist, composer, and band leader Keith Jarrett, and this is his newest album for ECM Records, The Old Country, More from the Deerhead Inn. So, The Old Country is a live album that features a performance that took place at the Deerhead Inn back in 1992. And Keith Jarrett put out a live album in 1994 called At the Deerhead Inn. So here we are, 30 years later. Keith Jarrett put out a second live album from that performance, and it features the remaining songs from that concert. And throughout Keith Jarrett's legendary career, he has had pretty much the same working trio that he has played with, but for this live album, it features a slight change in the rhythm section. Of course, we've got Keith Jarrett on piano, longtime collaborator and bassist Gary Peacock, and drummer and old collaborator Paul Motian. And this marks a historic moment because this is the first time since 1976 that Keith Jarrett and Paul Motian had played together, as Paul Motian was a member of Keith Jarrett's American Quartet featuring Dewey, Redman, and Charlie Haden. And Gary Peacock and Paul Motian, of course, are no strangers to one another. They have played together many times in different situations and in various settings and configurations. And they were also the rhythm section for another iconic pianist, the one and only legendary pianist Paul Bley. So there is a lot of history between these three legendary musicians. And traditionally, as always, most of the material that's featured on this album are all standards, which was an important trademark for the Keith Jarrett Trio. And this marks the second Keith Jarrett Trio album not to feature longtime drummer Jack DeJohnette, who, as we all know, was a cornerstone of Keith Jarrett's Standards Trio. And Jack DeJohnette brought a lot of power to Keith Jarrett's music and the overall sound of the trio. Paul Motian is a different drummer to Jack DeJohnette. He's a lot more laid back and he brings a much more lush feel to the music, but he can also bring a hard hitting feel when he wants to. And the chemistry and the musicianship between these three icons, as you'd expect, is absolutely excellent. And everybody really shines. And for me, this is an absolute unbelievable live performance from three of the greatest musicians that ever lived. And even though this trio didn't last very long, when you listen to these three guys playing together, it just sounds like they've been playing for years. And that's a true testament to the ability of all three of these musicians. They can read each other's minds, and it's almost like they're telepathic, because they can really listen to one another and really get into each other's heads in their playing. And I think everybody is on fine form. Keith Jarrett, of course, he's always on top of his game with lots of classy piano playing. Gary Peacock delivers gorgeous bass solos. And Paul Motian, of course, one of the greatest drummers of all time. He just makes everything sound great, and he does exactly that on this live album. And it's absolutely amazing. I've just finished listening to this earlier, and I'm just absolutely blown away by how good this live performance really is. And I'm kind of glad that they decided to released this performance now. So now that we've got At the Deer Head in and The Old Country, it just kind of feels complete that we've got the whole performance on CD. So I'm really pleased about that. And what makes this performance even more special is that Gary Peacock and Paul Motian are no longer with us, but it's just nice that we've got this little document to listen to and just hear these legends do what they do best, and that's just play beautifully. So let's have a look, shall we? So it's just a list of the musicians who play on the album, and there's some liner notes from Keith Jarrett about this performance. And there's the venue, which kind of looks like a haunted house. And there's some notes from ECM producer Manfred Eicher, who done an amazing job with the production of this album. And there's the track listing. So as I mentioned earlier, most of the material that's featured on here are standards, so there's no Keith Jarrett originals whatsoever. And we've got Everything I Love by Cole Porter, I Fall in Love Too Easily by Jules Stein and Sammy Kahn, Straight No Chaser by Thelonious Monk, All of You by Cole Porter, Someday My Prince Will Come by Frank Churchill and Larry Morey, and the title track, which is The Old Country by Nat Adderley, Golden Earrings by Victor Young, Jay Livingston, and Raymond B. Evans, and How Long Has This Been Going On by George and Ira Gershwin. So, as I said, the Keith Jarrett Trio were always known for playing standards and coming up with new versions and new arrangements of iconic material from famous composers. And what Jarrett, Peacock, and Motian do with the standards is they take them, put their own spin on things, and just take it to different places. Something that the Keith Jarrett Trio made a career out of for many years. And the playing, as you'd expect from three musicians of this caliber, is just absolutely excellent. So the standout tracks for me are I Fall in Love Too Easily, which opens up with a gorgeous piano intro by Keith Jarrett. Straight No Chaser is excellent, which has got an amazing bass solo from Gary Peacock. Someday My Prince Will Come, absolutely beautiful. And The Old Country, which is the longest track of the entire album, which is like almost 13 minutes long, is beautiful and excellent. How Long Has This Been Going On is another great track as well. But I would say that all of the tracks on this album are brilliant. And I would go as far as to say that this album, as a live album, is excellent. And as far as the live environment is concerned, it's a setting that Keith Jarrett has always thrived in, and he always sounds amazing live. And Gary Peacock and Paul Motian, they sound excellent as well live. And overall, I think that the performance of this trio is brilliant. And it's a shame that this trio didn't last because I would have liked to have heard maybe a little bit more from these guys because we know that the rapport between Keith Jarrett and Paul Motian is legendary. Their collaboration goes all the way back to the late 60s, and they made a lot of historic music together. But, for me personally, you cannot beat the combination of Keith Jarrett, Gary Peacock, and Jack DeJohnette. That to me is the classic lineup of the Keith Jarrett Standards Trio. So you could look at this trio with Gary Peacock and Paul Motian as Standards Trio Mark II. That's the way I would look at it. But it's an excellent live album and one of the best albums from 2024. I just think it's absolutely amazing. And anytime there's a new Keith Jarrett album, whether it's a studio album or a live album, you know it's going to be excellent. And for me, it's always a big deal anytime there's a new Keith Jarrett album coming out. So there you have it. Keith Jarrett, The Old Country, more from the Deerhead Inn, an excellent Keith Jarrett trio album, and an amazing Keith Jarrett live album. Tremendous stuff, and I absolutely love it. Great album, in my opinion. So that's going to be it from me. I'm going to wrap this up now. What's your favourite track from Keith Jarrett's The Old Country? Is it Everything I Love, I Fall in Love Too Easily, Straight No Chaser, All of You, Someday My Prince Will Come, The Old Country, Golden Earrings, How Long Has This Been Going On, or did you enjoy the entire album from start to finish? There's no right or wrong answer. We all have our favourite tracks. You know what to do, guys. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, leave your thoughts and comments down below, and I will see all of you next time for another edition of the Jazz Albums Review Series. So until then, take care, everybody, and stay safe. And once again, as always, much appreciated. Thanks for listening.